Hello again. Let us continue ranking Germany's Tech 3 vehicles. Yesterday we went through every rank 1, so today we'll focus on rank 2. If you want all the details on how this tier list works, I invite you to watch the first couple of minutes of the previous video where I go through all of the explanations. Anyway, let's get to it. We'll start this rank with 2 armored cars, which will go straight into A tier. The first one is the
Panzer-Spähwagen.
a French car with a gun of the Puma strapped on top, while the other is just the good old Puma. Both of these vehicles shine by their mobility and decent firepower. They make for great flanking vehicles, and players often up-tier them because of how good they are. I would mention that despite having a great balance between mobility and firepower, the Puma has a very loud engine noise, as well as a pretty slow turret traverse speed, compared to the
Panzer-Spähwagen.
At 3.7, the 50mm gun it uses may also start to show its limits, especially when facing some very heavy armor, which is why you should always flank and ambush your enemies in this armored car. Up next we have 2 tank destroyers, the Dicker Max and the Sturer Emil. The Dicker Max will go into C tier, while I'll put the Sturer Emil in B tier. Basically, both of these tank destroyers have such a powerful gun that they can shoot an enemy tank wherever they want and it will just penetrate and blow it up. These 2 TDs are the definition of overkill, really. The Dicker Max is for me less interesting to play compared to the Sturer Emil because it can be penetrated by heavy machine guns and it is a bit more cramped, reducing your survivability. It's also not very fast, so you should prioritize sniping over anything else. On the other hand, we have the Sturer Emil, which has the firepower of a Jagdtiger, a 6.7 tank destroyer. But at 4.0, I'll let you imagine the damage it can make. Compared to the Dicker Max, your frontal armor is also impervious to heavy machine gun fire. You can definitely bring this one up to 6.7 and it will still one-shot even the heaviest of targets. Just keep in mind that you are fairly big and very visible. Sniping is also heavily recommended here. Remember, however, that the Sturer Emil has access to smoke barrels, which is pretty rare for an open top TD, so it's not much, but it helps from time to time. Both of these vehicles also have a good gun depression of -15 degrees, so heals are your friends. Next, we have 3 more variations of the Panzer III. The first one, the Panzer III J1, is just an upgun variation of the J model. It will stay at the same tier as the J model, which means C tier, mainly because there's not much of a lineup for Germany at 2.7. It's best to pick the next version of the Panzer III, the L version, which will go in A tier. For me, the L version is the pinnacle of the Panzer III model. Good mobility, good gun, and the armor transforms you in a heavy tank, but only if you angle properly, as we mentioned in the last video. This model received additional 20mm frontal and turret-spaced armor plates, which greatly helps it survive longer. The AIM variation of the Panzer III, however, is in my opinion worse, because it's higher NBR, supposedly justified by some next to useless sidetrack armor and some thin-spaced armor around the turret. You just have better options at 3.3, so I wouldn't consider playing this one. And that leads me to some of the gems of rank 2, the Panzer IV F2 and G. They will both go in A tier. The gun they use is the main reason why they sit at this tier, even though the mobility isn't that bad either. Just remember that you don't have much armor, in typical Panzer IV fashion. The G version also has a wider variety of camouflages compared to the F2, notably forest camouflages and more frontal armor that makes it slightly better. The Panzer IV H and J, however, will respectively be placed in C and D tier. Just like the Panzer III M, you go higher in BR for just slightly more armor, and even if it makes a slight difference for the H version at least, you start facing way more powerful tanks which will shred you anyway. The Panzer IV-J is easily the worst Panzer IV in the game, because it has a less powerful engine and has a terrible turret rotation speed. Avoid it like the plague. Moving on to the only SPAA at rank 2, the SDKFZ250-121 will immediately be placed in A tier, because this anti-air can obliterate planes super easily. It has great rate of fire, great mobility, you can shoot almost indefinitely as you don't overheat the guns, an overall great anti-air. We now reach the second tank destroyer line with the Marder III-H. This one fires a more powerful APHE shell compared to the Marder III and has a different frontal armor layout, giving you more horizontal gun traverse angles. Very easy to use, a Panzer IV before the Panzer IV if you want, so it'll go in B tier. Next, we have the StuG 42G. This one is the best quote-unquote StuG model that you can get. It is extremely versatile. You start the grind with a very good APHE, not much pan though, but the TNT film makes up for it. But you can also use HE, and once you have heat shells, life becomes very enjoyable. It also received the better frontal armor and can even receive more additional armor to protect some of its flat armor parts thanks to an unlockable modification. At 3.0 you won't get a better tank destroyer. A tier straight away. The StuG 3F is simply a StuG 3 with the Panzer IV gun. However, it doesn't keep the improved armor of the StuG, so you go back to having only 30mm of frontal armor, which is terrible. Since it sits at the same battle rating as the Panzer IV F2 or G, I don't see why you would ever use this over them, so D tier. The StuG 3G is the last StuG model you'll unlock, and well, I don't think it's that good either. Simply put, you have at 4.0 a Panzer IV gun, and that's it really. You keep the improved armor from the StuG this time, but many vehicles around this BR can just ignore it. I think this model scales pretty badly, and you'll probably have a better time in the Sturer Emil, especially since they sit at the same BR. With that said, poor StuG 3G will fall into the D tier. I think that's pretty much it for the Tech 3 vehicles at rank 2. Tomorrow we'll move on to rank 3, so as per usual, let me know if you have questions or recommendations, and I'll see you in the next one.